Let's take a breath. That just burst the bubble of limitation. Whatever limitation we may have been holding on to, that's our theme for this month, is bursting the bubble of limitation. And we do that in so many ways, and there are so many bubbles of limitation that we have that we don't even know about. And until it bursts, and then you go, wow, I feel a little bit freer. I feel a little bit more open. I feel a little bit more available. And so we just keep in mind what Ernest Holmes says, that there is no limitation outside our own ignorance. And that since all of us have the ability to conceive of a life greater and greater good than that which we have experienced, we all have the ability to transcend our previous experiences and live a greater life. And so that's what we do when we come here over and over and over again every week and listen and study and listen to the message and enjoy the music and do our study and do our prayer work. We are seeking to transcend those previous experiences so that we can live a greater life. And so today I'm talking about from disability to possibility. From disability to possibility. Everything happens in consciousness. Everything is about consciousness. So I'm talking about in consciousness, from disability to possibility. Many years ago, I was practicing law in California, and I was on October 31st of that year, I was rushing from my office over in West LA all the way out to Pasadena to file some papers in court. And the court closed at, let's say, 4:30. And I got there 10 minutes before they closed, and the last day that the papers could be filed. That's one of the occupational hazards of being a lawyer, is waiting till the last minute and getting things in with deadlines. And it was pouring rain. And when I got there and parked my car right out front, with 10 minutes to spare, I opened the door to get out, and the rain was pouring, and I got out, and I made the turn to go into the courthouse to file my papers, and my knee didn't make the turn. That's what I said. And I didn't have time at that moment to deal with the pain of that, so I rushed on in, and I got my papers filed and did what I had to do, and then I got back in the car, and then I headed back to where I lived in Pasadena at the time, in South Pasadena at the time. And by the time I got home, my knee was bigger than my head, of course, and I had to end up in the emergency room. And the doctor, they did x-rays and all, they told me that I had torn a meniscus in my knee and that I needed surgery to have it repaired. And I said, well, I'm not gonna do that. So I'll just figure out something else to do. So I went home on crutches, and I figured, well, I think I'll just have acupuncture. That'll fix it. And so I went to an acupuncturist, and he said, well, you have a torn meniscus. Acupuncture won't help that. It will help with the pain. It'll help with other issues. I said, no, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do acupuncture. So I did acupuncture. I went back home also before I went to the acupuncturist, but during this time, I was reading Louise Hay, and I looked to see what the metaphysical cause, what the metaphysical meaning of a knee injury is. And the metaphysical meaning that I saw at that time was inflexibility. So I said, this is the first time I've ever known Louise Hay to be wrong. I'm the most flexible person I know. That can't possibly be right. So I'm not going to do surgery. I'm going to do acupuncture. So that's what I did. I did acupuncture. And I walked around on those crutches, and I did acupuncture. And this went on year after year after year. And I would check in with Louise Hay again, and kept saying inflexibility. And I'm like, nope. Then I saw another clause that said inability to bend. It's like, doesn't apply. This is the first time Louise has been wrong, because that doesn't apply to me. So I went on through my life, went on through the things that I was doing, hobbling around with this bum knee, year after year after year. This wasn't a short period of time. And as it got worse, meanwhile, I moved back to Cleveland, and one of my closest friends' nephew was an orthopedic surgeon. And when I went to see him, he told me, guess what? You have to have surgery. It's like, nope, not going to do that. And so he said, you really are going to ruin it now, because now something else had happened, and then I had a torn meniscus in the other knee. And was beginning to have back issues and all kinds of stuff. Wasn't going to have surgery at all. So that went on, and that went on, and that went on. And that went on. And that went on for a long period of time. And some years later, I had moved back to California, and I went to Oakland to speak at a church there. And I had 2 services to do, and between the 2 services, I was greeting people at the back door, and then I went back into the minister's office to pray with the practitioners who were going to be serving at the second service. And as we were standing in that prayer circle holding hands, I felt a crunch in my knee. You know that feeling? Felt like I heard it. Well, you may not know it in your knee, but you know when something in your body does something that's like, ooh. Well, I felt a crunch, and I knew that something really serious had happened. And little did I know that meant all the cartilage was gone by then. So I had a service to do. So I got up and I did that second service, and then I stood in line at the back door for 45 minutes and met people and greeted people. And then I got in my car and I drove back to Santa Cruz, which was a 2-hour drive, knowing all the time that, you know what, the game is up. You got to do something different. You got to do something. And when I got home, I looked at Louise Hay one more time. And this time I saw those new words they had inserted, the ones I had not seen before, so they must have put it in my book when I wasn't looking. And this time, the first thing there was stubborn pride and ego. Stubborn pride and ego. Then inability to bend, then inflexibility. So not only had I been resisting doing what needed to be done, I was in denial. I didn't even see the part about stubborn pride and ego, because that certainly did not apply to me. But you know what? The point that I'm making is that I was in so much resistance about that I wasn't able to do anything but deal with what had become for me a disability. That had become a disability. That knee issue had become a disability. I had lived with that for so long. My range of motion being limited, different things that I wanted to do, places I wanted to go, had been limited by this knee issue. And my whole life revolved around my knee, that my knee injury became my story. That became how I lived in the world, the way that I lived in the world. Because I had this self-imposed disability. Something that limits us is a disability. And so I lived with that for years. And I knew when I was in Oakland that I was going to have surgery. After all these years, I was going to have surgery. So then I started to turn to that inner intelligence within me, knowing that, I don't know, when I got home, I called my daughter and I said, you know what, I'm going to have surgery. And she's like, okay, what happened? So I told her, and she said, when are you going to have it? Who's going to do it? I don't know any of that. I just know that God knows all of that. And when I'll know when the perfect surgeon appears, and I will know when the perfect time appears. And so it was from the fall until April of the next year that I had to wait to have this surgery. And then after I had the surgery, everything just opened up. Doors opened up. No pain, no issues. I just had the knee replacement surgery, and I was fine. After all those years of walking through my life saying no, after all those years of experiencing all the pain and discomfort that I experienced in my life, After all, I did a lot of things that I wanted to do. I've still moved across country 4 times. And I still practiced law, and we went around speaking and teaching workshops and doing all that. But I'd look at how much more freely I could have lived my life, how much more pain-free my life could have been, how many more possibilities I had not even been able to see because I was so anchored in that disability of my knee. I was so anchored in that limitation that I had. I was so caught up in doing it my way and resisting that's what my life was like. The way we see the world is the way we move in the world. And so I saw the world as something that I needed to control, that I needed to be in control. I needed to decide how it was going to happen and when it was going to happen and who was going to do it and all this. I didn't know that, of course, because I was not controlling, and I certainly was flexible. The most flexible person I knew. But I still went through all those years of pain and anguish and limitation, doing it my way. Doing it my way. I have a minister friend who created an affirmation some years ago, and she says, I no longer need to do things the hard way just to do them my way. I no longer need to do things the hard way just to do them my way. And she said to me, McCreary, you need to learn that. She served as my practitioner for a long time. And she said, I no longer need to do things the hard way just to do them my way. And that's what I was doing things the hard way so I could do it my way. I could do this my way. And so, as I said, this knee issue became a disability for me. It became a disability. There were places I could go, but I had to always make sure that how many stairs are there going to be, how many, is it going to be a rough terrain or is it going to be smooth? There going to be enough chairs? I can't stand for so long. Am I going to be able to sit? Am I going to be able to walk? All that I had to think about all the time without even thinking. I mean, it's kind of unconscious that I was thinking of all that. After I had that surgery, I didn't even have to take pain medication after the surgery because I had so many people praying for me. I didn't even have to stay in the hospital but a day or 2 days, I think it was. I didn't have to do any of those things that people who I knew had knee replacement surgery had to do. I was up and walking without a cane. I never used a walker, never used a cane except for when I had to go up and down the steps at my house. But all of that's because I had just released my own resistance. I had released my idea of disability, and I had moved into the realm of possibility. Once I said yes to the surgery, once I said yes to the guidance that I was getting from God from day one, once I said yes, everything opened up. Everything opened up. Everything opened up. Let's take a breath, and I'll tell you how long that was. I injured my knee on October 31st, 1992. I had the surgery on April 14th, 2014. Wow. That's a long time to walk around, hobbling sometimes, in pain, being flexible. That's a long time to be in a place of disability, in a consciousness of disability, without even knowing it. And so I'm inviting you to take a look at your life and take a look at where the disabilities are in your own life. Because when we can see where the disabilities are, we know that contained within them is possibility. Because contained within every disability is the power and the presence of God. And God is possibility itself. And so when we can turn to that divine intelligence within us and follow the guidance that we receive from that divine intelligence that is within us, then the world opens up to us. When we can just release our own need to control, when we can just release our own need to do it our way, even though that's the hard way. When we can do that, then life really does open up. We transcend, as Ernest Holmes says, those limitations that we have set for ourselves. Because the limitations are in our own mind. The limitations are in our own consciousness. And so is the possibility in our own consciousness. It's in our own consciousness, and all we have to do is open up and claim it. And so there are 4 things I want you to remember today. First of all, just surrender to what is. Whatever the situation may be. It may be a physical disability, it may be a mental disability, it may be financial, it may be something, but whatever the limitation is a disability. And because there's a disability doesn't mean that there is not a way out, but just surrender to what it is. Surrender to what is. This is what it is. I hurt my knee really bad. It needs to have surgery. And accept that. Be with it. Surrender to what is. And then the second thing you want to do is to just ask for guidance. Ask for guidance. Turn within. Go to God first to find out what is it that I need to do to move beyond this, what is. How can I move into that place of what can be? How can I move into that place of possibility? How can I move into that place of the allness and fullness of God, which is possibility itself, as I said? How can I move into that place? From where I am right now, from accepting and surrendering to what is, how can I move to a greater place right here and right now? And then be open to the guidance that we receive. Here's the third thing that's really important to keep in mind that I didn't get until a long time after. Give up your resistance to the guidance that you get. Give up resistance to the guidance that you get. Think about it. Give up resistance to the guidance that we get. I have learned in my life on many occasions that my arms are too short to box with God. There was a Broadway play by that same name, My Arms Are Too Short to Box with God, and I always laughed. It took me a long time to learn that my arms are too short to box with God. But I would give it the old college try. I'd box anyway. And I always lost. I couldn't, my arms are too short. And so I'm saying that to you, your arms are too short to box with God. When God is guiding us, when God is directing us, when God is showing us the way, go for it. Go for it. Be willing to let go of your own need to be right. Be willing to let go of doing it your way. Be willing to let go and to just allow God to guide us and to show us the way and to follow the instructions that we're getting, following the advice that we're getting, following all the signs along the way, because there are signs along the way everywhere telling us this way to possibility, this way to what you want, this is the way to go. And I was doing all my spiritual work. I was doing all the things I was supposed to do, except giving up my resistance. Still wanted to do it my way. And I'm inviting you to look at where in your life are you resisting? Where are you resisting? Because resistance is about separation. Because when we're resisting, we think that there's something out there that we have to resist. When we are in oneness, there is no resistance. When we're in oneness, we're in that place of allowing. When we're in oneness, we're in that place of possibility. When we're in oneness, we aren't looking at what the restrictions and what the what-ifs are and all that, and who's going to win and I'm going to do it my way. There's only one way. When we are in oneness, there's only one way. There's a Beckwith Bias Beckwith song that's, the way is God's way, when our way is God's. There's only one way. Our way is God's way. The way is God's way, meaning that there's only one way, and there's only one way, and that is God's way. And when our way is God's way, then it all comes together. When our way is God's way, that is the only way that is. And so God is always directing us, guiding us, showing us its way to do something. And when we can follow that and release what we consider to be our way, rather than God's way, we're releasing the separation, we're releasing all that stuff that would keep us separate and moving into that place of oneness, which is where the freedom is. And that's what bursting the bubble of limitation is all about. It's about freedom. It's about freedom to be all that we were created to be. It's about freedom to live our lives fully and completely. It's about freedom to live out loud if we want to. It's about freedom. Some of you just finished the Play Big class. It's about freedom to play big. It's about freedom to be all that we can be. It's about freedom to experience the allness and the fullness of God always in our lives. But we can't do that until we're willing to let go of our resistance, until we're willing to see beyond where we are right now. We're willing to trust. We're willing to be in that place of not trying, but of trusting that there is that intelligence within us that knows all, that is always guiding us, that is always showing us the way, that is always caring for us, and always has the highest and the best for us, no matter what it is, no matter where it is, no matter how it is. If we can just release and let go and recognize that there's possibility beyond whatever it is we see right here. Someone said that there's a series of certain opportunities that we have to have great experiences, and they show up brilliantly as impossible situations. That there are certain circumstances that are great opportunities for us that show up brilliantly as impossible situations. So when we're looking at what appears to be an impossible situation, when we're looking at what appears to be something that we don't know how to get through, or how it's going to end, or how this is going to work, we don't have to know the how. We don't have to know the how. Thank God for that. Because if we did, we couldn't figure it out. We don't have to know the how. All we have to know is the what. What it is we want. What it is we want. What it is we want. And then keep our eyes focused on that. God knows the how. God knows how to bring it. God knows how to heal it. God knows how to mend it. God knows how to restore it. God knows how to do all of that, because God is all of that. God is all of that. Healer, restorer, restoration itself, possibility itself. And so when we can be in that place of oneness, that place of knowing, that place of accepting, that place of trusting, then that's when we get to live the greater life. That's when we get to experience the greater good. That's when we get a chance to move from disability to possibility. That's when we get a chance to really walk forward in our lives, really living full out. As I was driving here this morning, I had the radio on for a change, listening to NPR, and I heard parts of an interview with Bethany Hamilton, the surfer whose arm was cut off in a shark attack. And she, of course, is now surfing again and winning all kinds of championships and whatever. And the interviewer was asking her, weren't you afraid to go back into the water? Aren't you afraid to compete again? How could you get back on a surfboard after losing your arm, after the shark bite and all that? And she said, I was more afraid of not doing what I love than I was of a shark. I was more afraid of not doing what I love than I was of losing a limb. I was more afraid of not experiencing the joy that I get when I'm surfing, the love that I feel when I'm surfing. I'm more afraid of losing that than I am anything else. She was talking about her passion, and that passion comes from her experience of God. The love that she has for surfing is the way God is showing up in her life as her passion. And God is saying, as I said, passion says, always follow me. She's following that passion. And with that, the only fear that she has is of losing that. And I thought, wow, thank you, God, as I was driving along and I heard that. From disability to possibility. Yes, I lost an arm, but I still have the ability. There's still that possibility for me to surf and to do what I really love and to travel the world doing this and to inspire others to do what they really love, to follow their passion, to follow their heart, to look for the possibilities within the disability wherever they may be. That's always possible for each of us. That's always possible for each of us. So when we start to look at the things that we cannot do, keep in mind that God can. When we get into the I can'ts, keep in mind that God can. Keep in mind that within every situation, there's a possibility of something greater. And so when we can move away from that disability consciousness, that consciousness of restriction, then we can move into that possibility consciousness. If you find yourself worrying more than you pray, that's a disability. If you find yourself worrying more than you pray, that's a disability. Because that's separating us from God. When we are worried, you can't be at one with God and worry at the same time. It doesn't happen. You're either at one with God where everything is possible and everything's already taken care of and you're at trust, or you're not. And so when you worry more than you pray, we're in a place of separation, and that's a disability. And so what we want to learn to do is to move into that place of just knowing the truth. Just knowing that God is in the midst of everything that's going on, no matter what this disability may be, no matter how we may name it, no matter what it may look like, no matter what it may feel like. Just knowing that even in the midst of all this is that power and that presence that transcends all. And when we know this truth, there is no limit, because our ignorance has been rolled away. And Ernest Holmes says that there's no limit outside our own ignorance. And when our own ignorance is dissolved, then the light of awareness is all around us. The light of truth is all around us. And all we need to do is step into it. Step into it. And so that's the fourth thing that we do after releasing the resistance. We just step into the truth. We step into the truth by following that guidance that we're getting. We step into the truth with our trust. We step into the truth with our faith. We step into the truth with our awareness that we are each and all made in the image and likeness and out of God itself. And that God is always, always, always right where we are. No matter what's going on, no matter what's going on, no matter where it's going on, no matter what we may call it, in the midst of it all is God. In the midst of it all is safety and protection. In the midst of it all is love. In the midst of it all is peace. In the midst of it all is harmony. In the midst of it all is balance. In the midst of it all is possibility. The possibility that we can experience all of these qualities of God simply by bringing ourselves into alignment with it over and over and over again. It starts with our breath, just taking a breath. It starts with our yes. It starts with our yes. It starts with our yes. And the more we say yes, and the more we go deeper with our yes, the greater our lives are, the greater our experiences are. It doesn't matter what the facts are, the greater experience of truth that we have each and every moment of each and every day. And as I like to say, I'm telling you what I know. I'm not telling you what somebody told me. I'm telling you what I know. That there are times when we may feel like, well, this has been going on too long, like 22 years that I walked around with pain in my knee. It's never too late. It's never too late to change. It's never too late to do something different. It's never too late, no matter what you've done in the past and what you refuse to do, it's never too late to have the life that you want to live. It was not too late for me to get that new knee and go on about my life, go on about my business, and not even think about it anymore. After all those years, it is never too late. My mother used to say, so long as you have breath in your body, things can change. So long as you have breath in your body. She always said that. And she said, sometimes, she said, so long as you have breath in your body, you can do something different. And she said, sometimes when you can't do anything different, you can think something different. You can change your mind. Now, she didn't study religious science, but she studied Emerson, and she taught Emerson and Troy and all those, and she believed strongly in the power of the mind. And she'd always tell us, if you don't control your mind will control you. you control your mind because that controls everything. And all she was saying was change your thinking, change your life. She didn't know she was saying that. But that's exactly what she was saying, that if you can't change anything else, you can change your mind. If you can change your mind, your life can change. I remember hearing her say that all my life. And that is so true. That's where the journey from disability to possibility happens. It happens in our own minds. It happens in our own consciousness. Because when we get it in our own minds, that I can move from this place of disability, I can move from this place of limitedness, I can move from this place of limitation, I can move from this place of not enoughness, I can move from this place of restriction, I can move to this place of freedom. All of that happens here in our own mind first. It all happens in our minds. And that's how we have the consciousness shift. And so I invite you today to give up your resistance. Don't try to box with God. I've already tried it. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. And just allow yourself to just walk the walk that's laid out before us. Walk that path that's laid out before us. Follow the guidance that we're getting. Always, that's always available. And live a greater life. A life of possibility. Let's take a breath as we just turn within in this moment. As we just turn within to this place of oneness. This place of knowing absolutely that there's one life. This place of knowing absolutely that there's one breath. This place of knowing absolutely there is one. One. I am one with this one. Each person here is one with this one. This one I choose to call God, but you don't have to call it anything. You can call it something. This something within each of us moves us, inspires us, animates us. This something within us lives and moves and has its being in us as us. This something is that within which we live and move and have our being. There's nothing that can separate us from this something called God. There's nothing, no thing that can take us outside the realm of God. And so we just breathe our way into this place of oneness now. As I speak this word for each of us this day, I speak this word for Creative Living Fellowship this day, for this community this day. Just knowing that this community and each and every one of us is a divine idea in the mind of God. That we were divine ideas before we became form. And that as such, everything that we need to express life fully and completely is already within us. And so any sense that we have of anything that would limit, anything that would encumber, anything that would hinder, anything that would block in any way, we can release that here and now. And it is being released by the word that's being spoken right here, right now. We let go of whatever disabilities we have in consciousness, because that's where it all is. We let go of anything that would hinder, and we open ourselves up to that one power, that one presence, that one life that knows all, is all, that is whole, that is perfect, that is complete, and is our life. And as we do this, everything is made new. There's a new heaven and a new earth, and we get to experience it all. Doors that we didn't even know were there are opening to us. Health and wholeness are restored in our lives. Our hearts are healed as we move through times of grief and loss. The fullness and the love of God is right in the midst of it all. Healing is a possibility for each one of us. That's what I'm speaking the word for us today. Healing of our hearts, healing of our minds, healing of our bodies, healing of every aspect of our being. Whatever that healing looks like, we have no attachment to it, for God already knows what it looks like. I pause momentarily so that we may speak the names of anyone you'd like held in prayer. You may speak their names silently or loud, and you may speak them now. And so for all those whose names were spoken here this day, I know that God and possibility is in the midst of every life, every situation, every circumstance, that there's nothing that can block, nothing that can hinder. For God is all powerful, all knowing. This prayer goes out to anyone on this planet needing a prayer today. All those affected by storms, all those affected by whatever restrictions and limitations there may be. Healing of hearts everywhere is happening everywhere because God is. And so I just simply say thank you, Father, Mother God, for the opportunity to speak this word. Thank you, Father, Mother God, for the opportunity to experience a new life, a new way, a new day. Thank you, Father, Mother God, for everything, for everything, for everything. I just allow it to be now. And so it is.